Hello and welcome to Self-Link Restaurant Podcast episode number 5. Today we have a very special guest, Yashoda Naidoo from Annapurna and Prana. She's been on this journey for a long time and she's, I consider someone that's very influential in the industry. So we're really lucky to have her today on with us. How are you doing today, Yashoda?
Hi, how are you guys?
We're good.
Good.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Yes, thank you for inviting us into your beautiful home.
Yeah.
That was a clutch move, so
Yes.
I really appreciate it. So how have you been? How's business? You told us you've been in the restaurant industry now for 23 years.
Well, I started cooking out of my home in the year 2000
Wow.
and delivering lunches around Albuquerque to alternative healing modalities like yoga studios,
Yeah.
the Ayurvedic Institute, massage therapy offices, chiropractor offices. I did that for a year and a half. And so I count counted as being in the restaurant business, even though what I was doing back in the year 2000 was considered illegal. Cooking out of my home and delivering lunches. But that was basically the foundation, the start of Annapurna's. So our first brick and mortar was January 2002, January 17th.
Wow.
And
where was that?
that was on San Mateo, near San Mateo Copper, San Mateo Central. And again, a very inexperienced
Right.
operator that I was. I didn't even know how to cook when, I decided that I wanted to have a restaurant.
Yeah.
When I came to live in America, I came by myself without family. And so I didn't know how to cook. I had to suddenly teach myself how to cook. Being a strict vegetarian, being raised vegetarian, I have not eaten meat, fish, or eggs in my life. So
Wow.
I have no, and I didn't know how to cook it, right?
Yeah.
So, your parents, they set the bar kind of high.
Right.
In my home, it was all about the academics and not about domesticated and not about cooking.
Right.
My mother, figured that if we were educated, we would have jobs or create our own businesses that would pay us enough to have personal chefs.
Right.
Yeah, that was her dream, that she didn't want her girls
She set the bar high.
slaving over a hot stove.
Right.
Whether it was cooking for themselves or cooking for a man.
Right.
So,
Well, that's good. Very progressive.
So she wanted us to have an education, and she would actually say, it's going to be really difficult at 30 to do a PhD.
Right.
However, when you're 30, it's going to be a breeze, a piece of cake to learn how to bake a cake.
Yeah.
So she wouldn't
Good
have
point.
even allow us in the kitchen.
Wow.
So I didn't learn, like most people in my culture and my background, most girls learn at home,
Mhm.
how to make the basic, rice and veggies
Yeah.
and rice and dal, which is a staple and in Indian homes. And,
Yeah.
that's what I was raised on. And so when I got here, I didn't know how to, cook.
Yeah.
But not having family, I had to learn. So fortunately for me, I have photographic memory, and I just decided that I'm going to go to a store. I'm going to find mung beans and rice and basmati rice and some spices, and I'm going to learn how to make dal.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much how I started. And I would make
Okay.
phone calls home and ask questions, and I would send emails. We didn't have WhatsApp, and we didn't have Facebook and that
Yeah.
when I came to this country 30 years ago. So that's how I taught myself how to cook.
Wow.
And then when I came to live in Albuquerque, I was working for a firm, a Big Five accounting firm called
Yeah.
Arthur Anderson back in the day. And when I came to Albuquerque, it was like, okay, a job where everything was a deadline last week. I mean,
Yeah.
tax season was the worst, right?
Just stressful.
Year-end audits were the worst. So long days. And again, where do I eat?
Yeah.
It wasn't a vegetarian restaurant in Albuquerque.
At all. Nothing.
Nothing, not even in Santa Fe, not even in
Wow.
Taos. So it was again like having to cook, the kind of food that I was raised with.
Right.
Very restricting. Like I was raised without onion and garlic, for example.
Wow.
And so, I would go to Italian restaurants,
Yeah.
and the firm would buy us food from Mario's on San
Right.
Pedro's
Yeah.
because our office was at Park Square.
Okay.
And they would buy us, lunch from there, dinner from there when we worked late over tax season or at year end.
Yeah.
However, the dishes, I love Italian food.
Yeah.
However, it was totally filled and
just
laced
garlic
with
and onions.
garlic
Yeah.
and onions.
Yeah.
And as soon as that hit my palate, my body said, "This is
Yeah.
not."
This is new.
It's
This
not-
is
yeah.
this
Yeah.
is a lot.
So
to
it's
go
very-
from none to Italian food.
Right.
That's 0 to a million.
So I then decided that I had to cook and
Yeah.
plan, and so eventually when I did that, I over the years I worked, I soon tired of working as a CPA.
Yeah.
Very intense, and I literally said to myself in the summer of in the spring of 2000, I said to myself one day, I was lying in my hammock
Yeah.
in the backyard in my house by the mountains in the foothills,
Yeah.
and I said, I can do a restaurant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I can do that.
And
It's-
this is after you being like cooking for yourself for a
Yeah.
while.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which I think this is really funny because this has been a recurring theme in everybody that we've talked to who's a restaurant owner is there has to be a little bit of delusionality at the beginning
Yeah.
where you're just like, because Charlie was the same thing. Charlie was a particle physicist at Los Alamos and he was just like, you know what, I think I could do a point of sale system for a restaurant. Never worked in a restaurant, don't know what a restaurant really needs, but I'll just set that up. And then Haas, even at Pizza 9, he was a civil engineer and the same thing. He was like, I'm
Yeah.
going to just start managing restaurants instead. So what is it about the restaurant business? What was the passion because you need passion to have
Well,
that dream come to fruition?
honestly, I needed to eat.
That was it. That's
I needed
that's
to
a
eat.
big motivator.
And I said to myself, if I am feeling this way, I know there has got to be many people that feel the same way.
Right.
There just wasn't anything like today. If you go into like Flying Star, you've got some vegan options, for example.
Yeah.
They do a great job there. They've done a great job with their European pastries. So
Yeah.
that was something that drew me to that business when I arrived here.
Okay.
Mm.
And I said to myself, there just isn't anything in any restaurant you would have to literally talk to the chef to say, okay, I want this to not have, chicken stock
Right.
and
Butter,
or anything like
eggs,
that, or eggs or like fish. A lot of times people think if you're a vegetarian that you eat chicken. How strange.
Yeah.
So then I started to go into restaurants and tell the chefs, tell the servers,
Yeah.
I do not eat anything that once walked, swam, or flew.
Yeah.
So, they would look at me strangely.
Yeah. But that's good early
right.
management experience. You start.
So I said to myself, there's got to be, a market for this.
Oh yeah.
And I then got to a point where I felt like I do not want to be counting columns of figures. I don't want to be adding up columns of figures anymore. I don't want to
Right.
be counting the beans,
Yeah.
the muffins. I want to roast the beans and I want to bake the muffins.
Yeah.
Yeah. You wanna
So-
get hands on and
Right.
get away from the numbers and get to touch the food and the
Right.
ingredients. Yeah.
And I do believe that we're all innately, we are equipped. We come to the planet equipped to care for our bodies and to put into our bodies what is supposed to go into our bodies.
Yeah.
So that's how the whole thing started. Also, when I started cooking for myself, I learned pretty soon that hey, this food does taste like what I ate at my home in my
Yeah.
mom's kitchen. So maybe I'm doing something right.
Yeah, on the right trail. Yeah.
And so that's when the idea was born in the year 2000 for a restaurant.
Yeah.
And then what made it very convenient was the Ayurvedic Institute was here at the time.
Okay.
Dr. Vasant Lad was the head of the Ayurvedic Institute, and I went to him and I told him that this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to make lunches, brown bag lunches, and deliver it, to the students at the Ayurvedic Institute. The Ayurvedic Institute also had a consulting practice, so they would have people coming in for Ayurvedic medical consults. So
Right.
it was definitely, Dr. Ladd was definitely a driving force, in giving me that boost
Right,
and giving me that confidence.
Right, support and telling you that there
Telling
is
me
a
that-
market here, right?
Yeah.
There, he's teaching all these
Right,
people. He's
right.
really growing the education. So
Right.
you guys obviously were on converging paths.
Right. And when I went to see him and tell him what I was going to do, and I wrote the menu, what I would be cooking every day,
Right.
Monday to Friday, and I would, cook between, I took orders at 9 o'clock, up until 9 o'clock.
Mhm.
And I would take orders up to 9 o'clock. Between 9 and 11, I cooked. And between 11 and 1, I delivered it around the city.
Wow.
And, being an accountant and having that discipline, I kept.
Your timeline.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I got the numbers right. Let's say
Right.
I got the numbers right.
Yeah.
So the day I went to see him and give him this menu, presented this menu to him, and he looked at me and said, and he had known me, before that, and he looked at me and said, how did you know all of this? How did you know, like, what to cook on a Monday? Monday is the day for the moon, and you cook everything surrounding the moon and the character of the moon. Like you do white vegetables, you cook white vegetables, you cook watery vegetables because the liquid associated with the moon is water, right?
Right. Okay.
Tides.
So right,
Yeah.
exactly. So, and then Tuesday was Mars, and then you cooked like reddish brown, so like the beets, carrots,
Yeah.
red lentils. And he looked at all of this and said, He looked at me.
You put in your homework.
Yeah.
And he was like, how did you know how to do this? I said, I know.
Mm.
And so he said, this is amazing. This is wonderful. Please do this. And he also said to me, can you cook for the Ayurvedic Institute for the Panchakarma department? Panchakarma is a detox process.
Mm.
He said, could you cook for the department? Because we have patients from all over the world that come here for the detox program.
Right.
So the very next day, I started cooking for them, and that meant cooking every day, Monday to Friday, and you had to get it by 9 o'clock. You had to get it to the Ayurvedic Institute.
And are you doing this all by yourself, or do you have some
I was
people
doing
helping?
that by myself
Wow.
at that time.
And how many people are you cooking for?
I was cooking for the Ayurvedic Institute for at least 10 people a day,
Okay.
apart from my orders that I had to do
For delivery.
for delivery.
And how many people were you cooking all together at this
The
point?
very first day,
Uh-huh.
I made flyers then, and I sent them around.
Yeah.
And I am no artist. I didn't, no graphic artist. So
Yeah.
just basic, plain lines of like, Monday I'm doing this, Tuesday I'm doing that, and this
Right.
is what I'm doing, and this is how much I charge. And I didn't do all the labeling like we do in the restaurants today, vegan
Yeah.
and gluten free and soy free and like.
Yeah.
No, it was just very
Just getting
basic.
started. Yeah. You were the first
Okay.
vegetarian restaurant.
That's it.
That was it.
So, however, I did keep, the restrictions. I didn't do onions. I didn't do garlic.
Wow.
To this day, there are many dishes on our menu that do not contain onion and garlic.
Okay.
And there is a market for that. There are
Yeah.
Buddhists out there that come from all over New Mexico to the location in Santa Fe, the location here. We have a Buddhist temple here in New Mexico now, here in Albuquerque. So they do not eat onion and garlic in their food.
Wow.
Okay.
So Annapurna is one of the very few restaurants in New Mexico that can provide that service
Okay.
to that demographic of people that do not eat
Yeah.
what I call aggravating vegetables or
Sure.
aggressive vegetables,
yeah.
onions and garlic. So, and that's just part of the whole preventive behind inflammation.
Right.
Gotcha.
Yeah, we were
And I
talking
could
about
talk
that.
about that forever, but right now we're going to talk about other things. So the Ayurvedic Institute was a very big boost for me, and
Yeah.
I'm always, eternally grateful to Dr.
That's
Lad,
excellent.
to
Yeah.
Dr. Vasant Lad for that.
Yeah.
And so we started. Eventually, I found a place.
Mhm.
Again, a very inexperienced person. I did not work in a restaurant when I was in college. I didn't work at all when I was in college.
Yeah.
Again, came from a home where it's academics
Right.
and
That's the pathway.
Yes.
You don't want to go down into
parents
yeah.
paid for education,
Yeah.
so I didn't have to do student loans, didn't have to pay rent,
Right.
stayed at home.
Yeah, but obviously still gave you the skills to
Right.
understand how to run
Yeah.
a business.
So I
The
didn't
discipline, the skills.
I didn't have that experience of being a waitress, being a busser, being
Yeah.
expediter, running food in a restaurant. Had no experience how to do this. So I started with, no experience, and then having to go out and find real estate, find a place
Right.
to lease. And when I went and found a space and talked to the landlord, I was so stupid that I didn't know that you could get a number of months free rent because you're doing the tenant improvement. I got no
okay.
money from the landlord to do a tenant improvement,
Yeah.
and I picked a building that was not a restaurant space. And I had to create a restaurant space.
Yeah.
The other thing that I did that really freaks people out is that I had this building, I found this building, and I said, okay, I'm going to turn this building that was an office into a restaurant. And being the very following kind of protocol person that being a CPA provides,
Right.
Yeah.
it's like, you know what,
Yeah.
legality here.
Right.
So I went to the environment department at the city of Albuquerque,
Yeah.
and I went straight to the inspector and said to the inspector, can you go with me and show me
Show me
if
what
this
to do."
building
Yeah.
is going to be okay for me to create a restaurant?
Yeah. Really asking for trouble.
When other restaurant operators found out what I did, they just looked at me and laughed. Like,
Yeah.
who would do that?
Yeah. Why are you
Well, I
inviting
did,
them?
and the inspector at the time, Jay Cousins,
Mm.
Cousins is his last name. He was so helpful. He came out
That's
to the
good.
location,
Yeah.
walked it with me,
Yeah.
and I took a napkin out of. I was delivering lunches,
Right.
and I met him after my deliveries, and I had a napkin in the car, and I took it, and he said, "Can I get something to write?" And I gave him this napkin, and he drew out a basic plan of what
Wow.
needed to go in a
Yeah.
restaurant. For example, I had no idea that you had to have a grease trap. You had to have a hood.
Yeah.
Well, I knew about the hood. I didn't know about the grease trap. And I didn't know that you had to have a ramp where wheelchairs could go up the ramp. I had no idea.
ADA compliance.
So he told me, gave me all of these rules and regulations and basically instructions and procedures.
Yeah.
And one of the things he said, you have to go out and find an architect.
Yeah.
So for me, it was great. This
Yeah.
is good.
That's how you learn.
So
Yeah.
I'm gonna be learning the entire way. So
From scratch.
from scratch.
Yeah.
So I went out, I found an architect, and this remodel ended up costing me $60,000.
Wow.
And by the way, I paid rent from the first day. From the day I signed the lease, I paid rent. I
Oh.
signed the lease
Yeah.
Wow.
already.
Yeah.
Then I started paying rent.
Yeah.
And while I was remodeling, I had no idea that you could ask for free rent.
Yeah.
Right. Did you eventually go back to the landlord and ask for help?
Hell no.
Wow.
Because again, I'm focused.
Yeah.
Remember we spoke about
Yeah.
production and
Yeah.
being focused on production
Yeah.
and no striking? So I just said to myself, it's okay.
Yeah.
I left that money on the table already, right there.
Right.
The beginning, I left money. I've been leaving money on the table since.
Yeah.
So I focused on getting the building ready, getting the remodel done.
Yeah.
The next step came when I had to find a contractor.
Mhm.
And the stupid me again, I gave the contractor all the money, and the
Up front?
contractor disappeared after
Oh
10
my
days.
God.
Yeah, you were
Yes.
just.
You know, I
I
think a
was
lot
so
of people.
smart.
Yeah.
That's how I was too. Like coming to this country from China, I was always trusting people, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, I can trust this person to do this and this. One time
Absolutely.
I had some floor done at my house, and I gave the money up front to the contractor. He goes, "Really, you're gonna give me all the money? What if I just leave?" And that's when I'm like, okay, you,
You
can't
wouldn't
trust.
do that.
Yeah, you can't trust everybody.
Yeah.
You know.
Right.
It
Yeah.
takes. I mean, you have. That's the street
The
smart.
remodel, 1,400 square feet,
Right? Wow.
took 5 months.
Wow.
And took a lot of borrowing from friends,
Mhm.
not family, because I didn't tell my family what I was doing.
Right.
My parents would have freaked out.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. They're like, we paid. You went to this school. We talked about this.
Right.
This is the whole thing.
And so I didn't tell them. So finally got the place open January 17, 2002. And the first day, we had over 100 people.
Wow.
People were lined up outside around the building. And my first day in sales back in 2002 was $900.
Wow.
And
Wow.
it was so busy. I was the only cook in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And I remember, again, inexperienced, right? It was so busy, but I had staff and I had, some people, friends again, helping me.
Yeah.
And all these people came in on the day we opened, and I was in the kitchen and I was cooking, and here was the pan with, I put in a little bit of oil, and I started to cry because I saw all these people waiting in line. So I got emotional, I cried. My tears fell into that oil, and
Fire came up.
so I had to immediately stop crying.
Oh
So
my
I
God.
know how to cry and I know how to stop.
That's good.
I
Yeah.
know how to start and I know how to stop.
Yeah.
So that was a major shock to me.
Oh yeah. No, you were trial by fire the whole way.
Exactly.
That's incredible.
So then, we got through that. But again, the very first day, there was no space in that dining room. People were sitting on the floor.
Wow.
People were sitting like everywhere. People were outside. And I said to myself again, I made a mistake. This
Yeah.
is too small.
Yeah.
So within 18 months, I found the location by UNM on the corner of Silver and Yale.
Wow.
I found that location. The day I signed the lease for that specific space, I signed the space for the building next door where we have the patio
Yeah.
and where we had the cooking school.
Yeah.
That became our production place. It became our storage, and then it became the cooking school.
Wow.
And eventually, now I'm moving the cooking school to our 4th Street location because, again, also, outgrown.
Yeah.
Um,
Did you have that vision when you were first getting started, selling it out of your car, cooking it at home? Like, did you ever think that you'd be at this stage where you have so many locations?
I didn't think I'd be in business this long.
Really?
Wow.
It's now, since we opened up January 2002, so it is 21 years now.
Wow.
Years.
Coming up for 22 years
Yeah.
in January
Yeah.
2024. So I didn't even plan on remaining in the business.
Right. I mean, it would be crazy to think you would be, right?
Yeah.
You're making your
Yeah.
whole own lane. You're doing, a restaurant where you're making food that didn't exist here before. So but you were able to find
The
your...
demand was there were people coming in. Well, firstly, there were people coming in and being grateful and appreciative the fact that there was a pure vegetarian restaurant,
Right.
a place that didn't have meat, fish, or eggs.
Yeah.
And I had to quickly adapt because then came the dairy allergies, the lactose intolerance, then came the gluten-free.
Gluten-free.
Yeah.
So, I didn't know how to bake.
Yeah.
Baking is more like a science than an art, right?
Yeah.
So I started baking, And everything we put out there from day one, people just ate it up
Wow.
and asked for more.
Yeah.
So I had to keep changing. I started, a good thing was the fact that I wasn't baking with eggs because I wouldn't even know how to bake with an egg.
Yeah.
So it was easy to just adapt, make the recipes gluten-free. So today, it's a lot of like trial and error. And today the bakery is vegan,
Okay.
gluten-free, and soy-free.
Wow.
So, and a whole lot more offerings than just the cardamom cookies and the muffins that we started out with back in 2002. A lot of listening to the customer.
Yeah.
I always listened to what was coming from the other side of the counter.
Right.
Apart from, just serving, I was always listening to what the customer wanted.
Right.
And there was a lot of allergy requests, anti-allergy diet. There were mothers that would come in and say, we don't want peanuts, we don't want nuts. There's so many different type of nut allergies.
Yeah.
So then I made a point that we will not have peanuts, peanut oil, corn oil, cornstarch, or anything like that. So we haven't had those ingredients in the restaurant, and I don't think we will.
So that must be really difficult for you to hire cooks, right? Because it's such a hyper-specific form of cooking.
Right.
Right.
So once how do you go through that process? Because a lot of people that we've talked to who are restaurant owners, they're just looking for a pulse. They're just bringing anybody in. So do you do a lot of educating and teaching people?
Absolutely.
Or are you...
You have to.
Yeah.
Do you put them through your own program, the school?
Well,
Or
I teach the cooks in the
all the
kitchen.
cooks hands-on?
Hands-on.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm in the kitchen teaching.
Yeah.
I have
Right.
taught so many cooks.
Yeah.
We're very fortunate in that our cooks, so our kitchen has stable labor,
Yeah.
whereas the front of the house is a revolving door.
Yeah.
Now the front of the house is just as challenging to teach because remember you're the first point of contact with
Right.
the customer.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't want you giving the customer gluten and having somebody have an anaphylactic shock in the dining
Yeah.
room, right?
Well, and
So the training is just as challenging.
yeah.
But we've been fortunate that our cooks stay with us
Yeah.
and they have that interest and they want to learn.
That's great.
And I am really proud to say we have diversity in our kitchens.
Oh yeah, that's
So
great.
I have taught Spanish-speaking people,
Yeah.
Spanish-speaking people of Mexican origin,
Yeah.
Venezuelan, South American
Yeah.
origin. I've taught them to make khichdi,
Wow.
which is like the ultimate Ayurvedic food,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's a very it's a neutral food. It's a basic food. In India, everybody eats khichdi.
Yeah.
Babies eat it. Young people, old
Yeah.
people, sick people. Everybody eats khichdi,
Yeah.
and it's a dish that's not hasn't it hasn't been like well known or cooked around the world
Yeah.
enough for people to have that experience.
Yeah.
So here
But
we
now
have
can-
Spanish-speaking people, and I don't speak Spanish,
yeah.
but I have trained so many Spanish-speaking cooks. So here I'm speaking in English, which helps them learn English, and they're speaking in Spanish.
Yeah.
And so I speak other languages, and sometimes it's really in my head I'm thinking something in Zulu, for example,
Mhm.
and
wow.
then I catch myself. I can't say that.
Right.
Like in Zulu, like when you want to say hurry up,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and I lived in South Africa, and so I learned that word working in South Africa. I learned that word, the Zulu word for like hurry up is like Jaquila, 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 and
Yeah.
here in Spanish it's like andale, andale. So sometimes I'm saying Jaquila, and then I catch myself, and I'm like, and the cooks are looking at me. What is she saying? And then I mean andale.
Yeah. There you go.
So
There's some similarities across.
So
all.
it's been interesting.
Yeah.
It's been challenging, but it's good experience.
Yeah. Do you feel like it's also difficult educating your customers? I was at your Eubank location the other day, and mother and daughter came in, and the mom's like, we're just here to get breakfast. Can I just get some steak and eggs? And one of your servers was like trying to be very, like you said, they're the first point of contact, and it's like, the owner doesn't believe really in having meat on the premises, right? There's not any of that here, so you can't get steak and eggs. And then she's like, what about just eggs? And it's like, listen, like you might be in the wrong store. She was telling her, she was trying to give her other options of things that she might like, right? Like something that maybe isn't as big of a swing. But do you see that a lot in your stores where people come in and they have like no concept of even what your restaurant is and what, because you don't have any of those staples really for people to grab onto. Because even it's really interesting for me is that with all the different restaurants we go to, right? It's like Mexican restaurants, carne adobada is like the number one seller everywhere. All the Thai restaurants, pad Thai is like the number one seller everywhere. But with you guys, or do you feel like there's a dish that even the mainstream people look at and they're like, oh yeah, this I understand, right? This is like dal or naan.
It's interesting that you say that, and it's interesting listening to you.
Yeah.
Well, you should have at Eubank. You should have sent them across to Dave's.
High desert.
High desert, right?
Yeah.
Because I think they do open at 8:00, and are they clients of yours?
They are.
Yeah. So you should have sent them right there.
Yeah. No, I would never.
And he definitely will have steak and eggs.
Yeah.
So it's interesting listening to you because when I opened the restaurant, the menu was so foreign that I said to myself, we had chai from day one.
Yeah.
Okay. But even chai was a foreigner on the drinks menu, right? Back in 2002.
Yeah.
So I said to myself, we've got to have muffins in the restaurant.
Just something.
Yes.
Some for the...
Even if they're, vegan muffins, you've got to have muffins.
Yeah.
So that people would walk in, and that was the familiarity.
Yeah.
Because when we started Annapurna in 2002, it was just a section of our menu today was what we served back then.
Right.
Which was just the khichdi,
yeah.
which was dal, rice.
Yeah.
We had 2 veggie dishes,
maybe
even 1 if I remember correctly. And then, we had the flatbreads called chapati. So the menu was very small back then.
Yeah.
And so it was, and maybe dosas on the weekend, those kind of items that I could do, not every day, but just
small
like
batches.
Yeah. So I brought in the muffins, and the other thing I brought in was the cardamom cookies.
Okay.
People would come in and eat those and say, are these biscochitos? No, wrong spice.
Yeah.
It is cardamom.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
niece.
right. So, I knew that
you had
I had
make
to
some
have
kind of
something that would bring people in and also have them take a seat.
Right. Yeah.
And but the chai and the cardamom cookies is really what put us on the map.
Okay.
Yeah. To this day, the cardamom cookies are the
number one
seller in the bakery. But then of course, people love the almond butter chocolate pie that I put out like about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
There's so many other items today that and we don't have that problem anymore because it's the world is embracing a vegan lifestyle.
Right. Definitely vegan.
So we don't have to have items that is gonna have people walk in, and we haven't got alcohol as yet.
Yeah.
And 21 years and we haven't had alcohol.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And people told me you've got to get alcohol because that will bring people
sales,
in. But I felt it didn't go with the kind of food with
because you're all about nourishing the body,
Right.
healthy.
Health,
But I drink beer myself.
Yeah.
I drink wine myself. I drink whiskey.
Yeah.
I grew up in British colonial territory, so
Right.
it's
Second
something
nature.
that I indulged, and I went to school in South Africa. At the University of Natal in Durban, where we had a pub
Yeah.
on campus back in
Wow.
in the 80s,
Yeah.
right? And so for lunch we had a beer
Yeah.
and went to class. So it's and then when I went to do my internship with an accounting firm, we would go out to lunch and have a beer and come back and continue working until
Right.
5 o'clock. So
Wow.
it was there, but it's like I just couldn't kind of put it into and have it
Yeah.
just be part of the menu and the
Yeah,
right.
It
offerings.
would kind of confuse your message.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but I think it's time, and we will have
Oh, really?
beer
Okay.
and wine. We've got a license. We've got an application for
Wow.
a beer and wine license out right now,
Yeah.
and so that's coming, and it's something to look forward to.
Yeah.
Because there are people that are making the transition from eating meat into becoming vegetarian and then eventually vegan.
Yeah.
That can still enjoy,
A beer and
a
wine.
beer
Some wine,
with
yeah.
their food or a
Yeah.
glass of wine. And, my plan is to offer a local beer. We've got a whole
Bunch of
craft
breweries,
beer
yeah,
that's true.
scene here in New Mexico, which
Yeah.
is like,
Wineries,
up there with the rest of the
distilleries.
world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and amazing wineries as well.
Yeah.
So, yes, that's going to be my next project on how to pair the beer and wine with the offerings that
That's
we have.
interesting.
Yeah.
Well, at least it's vegetarian still, right?
Right, absolutely.
So,
Oh, yeah.
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 Are there other concerns or things you have to take into account when you're selecting those beers and wines in terms of how it's going to balance with the Ayurvedic, or is there any Ayurvedic?
Oh, yeah. Fermentation is really not
Yeah.
exactly welcomed in the Ayurvedic circles.
Yeah.
However, the food at Annapurna's is cooked like according to one body,
Yeah.
Mhm.
3 doshas.
Hmm.
Doshas are forces or structure that makes up, gives each person that unique digestive capability.
Okay.
Okay. Then 4 seasons,
Mhm.
5 elements, 6 tastes, 9 planets. So there's so many factors that you can take into account when you put this menu together.
Okay.
And the public, the consumer, doesn't know all the principles that go behind what we do at Annapurna's,
Yeah.
and that's okay.
Yeah,
They don't
yeah.
have to be experts in Ayurveda to eat here.
Yeah.
However, for me and my conscience, I'm doing the right thing.
Yeah.
I'm healing as opposed to de-energizing. I'm
Right.
energizing.
Right.
Yeah.
So I will find a place and I'll find the right combinations.
Okay.
And different seasons. Maybe in the summer is when you're gonna sell a lot of beer
Right.
and wine. For me personally, I drink white wine in the summer
Yeah.
because white wine is chilled,
Yeah.
right? And it will cool you down.
Right.
Whereas in the winter, you need the warmth, and I drink red wine in the
Okay.
winter.
Yeah.
Even though, I'm no wine expert.
Yeah.
I learned, the little I know about wine, I've learned from my partner, from David.
Yeah.
And David drinks red wine throughout the year. But I drink it in the winter
Yeah.
because red wine is warming
Yeah.
and white wine is cooling.
Right.
In the same way, with beer, there's that fermentation. There's that I would probably end up serving more gluten-free beer than I
Sure,
would serve
right,
a beer with malt and hops, right?
Okay.
So or wheat for that matter. So there's going to be a lot of careful selection. but there's so much good happening on the beer scene right here with
Definitely.
local craft breweries. That's not going to be a challenge for us.
Yeah,
That's great.
you're
Yeah.
gonna
And
find
you got ciders, a lot of breweries
Yes,
making
yes,
ciders. That would be
absolutely.
good.
Yeah. Is it Sandia cider?
Yeah, Sandia
Yeah.
cider. I think every brewery's got their own cider now.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
I
I
drink
want to
the
go.
Sandia one over at El Vicino, and I've
Okay.
drank their beers for a long time too.
Yeah.
I think it's Canteen Brew House, right?
Kenton Brew House.
Canteen.
Yeah. I do want to touch back on earlier when you said you went to school for cooking, and specifically in the beginning
No, for accounting.
for accounting,
Mhm.
right? But then you went to the school for the Ayurvedic school.
I
here?
did not go to
Oh,
the
you didn't go
Ayurvedic
to it?
Institute, no.
Okay, but you went to him to specifically learn about the
Mhm.
ingredients. Is that right?
I went to not to learn about the ingredients.
Okay.
So I grew up with an Ayurvedic lifestyle.
Mm.
Oh, okay.
We ate well. When I say well, we ate like healthy.
Yeah.
Okay.
We ate the right things.
Yeah.
My mom would wake us up in the morning to get going for school. First it was, elementary school, high school, and then, university. I lived at home until I was 32.
Wow.
So my mom would wake us up with hot water.
Yeah.
Wow.
Just straight hot water,
Straight
no
hot
tea,
water.
nothing else.
Right. So and I still drink hot water to this day.
Huh.
So the chai came after that. Well,
Yeah.
you drank the hot water and
Yeah.
and then at breakfast it was the chai,
Yeah.
and it was very light food. It wasn't it was certainly not bacon and eggs or anything like that. It was food that would digest or go through your system
Yeah.
really quickly,
Right.
and light foods. Lunch was your main meal.
Yeah.
So we had lunches brought to school, like hot
Wow.
lunches that were delivered to school at lunchtime.
Yeah.
Yes, the other kids would look at us, our
Right.
lunches arriving in the tiffins,
Yeah,
the stainless steel tiffins.
Oh wow.
So, and like at first it was like, people would, the other kids would laugh, but after
Yeah.
that they were like, oh, well, can I have some of that?
Yeah.
Once they got to taste our
Trading
food,
lunches.
it was
Yeah.
like, but we weren't allowed to, I
Yeah.
couldn't trade somebody else's lunch because they had
Bologna.
bologna.
Pasta with
And
meatballs.
they had, it was sandwiches, and it was
Yeah.
like all like bologna
So
or
you-
ham and cheese.
And you've never had meat, eggs, fish, anything your whole life, incidentally, nothing ever?
No,
Wow.
well, by mistake.
Okay,
I've
yeah.
I've
'Cause I have-
lived in different places around the world,
Yeah.
and sometimes when we'd go somewhere to a restaurant and you'd ask for something, they would just by mistake, or I don't know,
Right,
sometimes
right.
intentionally. I
Right.
went to in this town.
Right.
I went to the elephant bar.
Elephant bar.
Over in
Right.
Uptown.
Yeah.
The one time we had a business meeting there, and I ordered a salad because that was the only thing I could order on the menu,
Yeah.
right? And what did they serve me? A chicken salad.
Yeah.
So I didn't, and it was so, the chicken was so like
Kind of shredded. Mixed
mixed in, that I didn't really realize it was a chicken salad. So I took
Oh.
a fork full of lettuce, what I
Yeah.
thought was lettuce, and I bit, and then it was like something felt like rubbery.
The
Yeah.
texture.
You know,
right
like,
away.
huh?
Yeah.
So I had to be discreet. It's a business lunch, right?
Right. Yeah.
I had to
Yeah.
be discreet and like take it
Your
out.
napkin.
And I realized,
Right.
oh my God,
Yeah.
this is chicken. So again, discreetly have to call the
Yeah.
waitress and, not like embarrass her,
Right.
and then say this is not what I want,
Right.
and then I have to say it's okay.
Yeah.
I don't have to bring
Right.
anything else, because right now it's the trust point is like gone, right?
Right.
You can't-
Yeah. You
So,
don't know if they're gonna get it
so
right
don't
the
bring me
second time.
anything else.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've eaten from that point, and then I won't just tell you about my teenage days when I was in Europe. We would play daring games, and I was in Vienna, in Austria, and we were at a place that had a trout farm.
Mm.
And my friends were like, well, people would go up to the specific like dam or whatever, and they could choose like they wanted that trout, right? And we're like, well, we dare you to have to pick a trout and have a trout, and like yeah, so I did that.
Dares can get you no matter what.
And then I ate a trout. I picked one and I said, yeah, I want that.
Yeah.
And I ate a trout. Well, I didn't eat all of it. I ate maybe like a quarter of it, and I was like, I can't do this.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did do that.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was the only.
Those are the only times, incidentally.
Yeah, yeah.
And a dare, which I mean, that's a dare.
And I did actually. The one time there was a restaurant down in Old Town called Ambrosia.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I went there and I specifically told them that I didn't want anything with eggs in it. I think they served me. Something that had egg in it.
Yeah.
Like a dessert or something.
Yeah, and it, what happens is when I eat something that has eggs in it, my stomach immediately goes into like a cramping situation.
Oh, okay.
So that night I remember having extreme stomach cramps, but you know, I didn't go back and say, hey, you gave me that, but it helped me understand what it is for you know, people coming into the restaurant and not necessarily being vegetarian, but or vegans for that matter. But if you have an allergy of some kind,
any kind of dietary restriction.
Yeah, so I'm really careful about that. I'm always, you know, making sure that doesn't happen. Somebody doesn't get sick from.
Yeah, you can relate. It's really hard for someone that doesn't have these restrictions to kind of relate to.
You just think someone's picky or difficult, right? But it's like there are real health concerns that people have, or real, you know, spiritual.
Yes.
Like my son has nut allergies, so anytime he touches peanuts or cashews or any type of nuts, he'll break out, you know, have hives.
Right.
So.
Yeah, my nephew has a nut allergy as well, and it was so interesting when he was like 2.
Yeah.
And we would go somewhere, and he would actually say. Does it have nuts?
Same thing. You know, we got him trained to a point where he'll ask these questions.
Yeah.
That's good that he's advocating for himself early on.
Right.
So with you being a trailblazer, starting kind of the vegetarian, vegan, you know, being one of the first, or were you the first vegetarian restaurant in Albuquerque?
I believe there was, is it Adam's Table or something? It was over there by, I think they, Central and Carlisle, kind of in the back. I think it was in that building that then became, I think, Raging Shrimp.
So it didn't last.
And then I think before that, and then now it became Sala Thai, and now it's no more Sala Thai. They moved over to the Last Call place, I think. And then it became something else. I think, gosh, what is it? Butter or?
Oh, butter,
Or some.
Yeah, it was butter.
Or Public.
It's not butter anymore. Yeah, Public House is right across the street.
Public House. Okay.
But there is butter
it's
right
Mark
next to it.
Baker's buildings, right? I think it is.
Yeah.
But I think you definitely made a name for yourself. Like I never knew any other, you know, vegan
Yeah,
restaurants.
You're definitely the biggest one
Apart
now.
from that, I didn't know. And then after we went into business in 2002, then we had a place, a Face Cafe came into by the university.
Yeah.
But I believe they're now on Eubank.
Yeah.
And then now there's a whole lot.
There's a whole lot.
So you kind of broke the dam, and you brought in this whole wave of vegan and vegetarian acceptance.
And you know, but not only are they like vegan or vegetarian restaurants, there's also like restaurants that have been traditionally serving meat and fish and eggs and that have now got truly vegan options on the menu, which is great.
Yeah. Well, and it seems like it's definitely it's a movement now. Where it's like you've got far more acceptance of it. And you were telling us before about a story about being stalked by a Scarlett Johansson because of the quality of your vegan products. So,
well, Scarlett Johansson was filming. I think, you know, I'm not into like movies and movie production and actors, and I'm just not starstruck.
Yeah, you told us you didn't know who she was.
She was filming, I think, The Avengers.
Oh, okay.
And she would come into the restaurant on Silver and Yale, and the staff told me that she was in town.
Right.
And I told the staff, don't bother her. They said she comes in and she eats in the restaurant.
Yeah.
And I said, please do not bother her.
Yeah.
Do not go there and ask, because I would like for her to continue coming to the restaurant.
Yeah.
Don't bother her.
Yeah, treat her like anybody
And
else.
so I knew she was in town. And so she had come to the restaurant with her chef and her assistant and maybe one other person, I don't know, because they always have like a whole entourage. Right.
Yeah.
So they had finished eating at the restaurant and they were in their car, and I pulled up to the restaurant to unload. I'm always carting stuff around. So
Still doing the
I came
deliveries.
to the Silver location to drop something off, and I was focused on getting that out of the car.
Yeah.
And I saw this car at the back there, parked there, but I didn't, recognize anybody in that car. And the next thing I know, there's this, to me, a little girl coming towards me. And at this time, it's like 9:00 at night, and we've had, my days are like 16-hour days, right?
Yeah.
It's 9:00 at night, and then I am like, oh, okay, somebody coming to complain. Complain about the fact that we close at 9:00 or something like that.
Yeah.
Or why don't we open at 7 a.m. anymore or something. So this person walked up to me and said, are you the owner of Annapurna's? And I said, yes, which, I shouldn't be doing. I said in a way of like I'm tired, like I'm ready. Yes.
Yeah.
So then she proceeded to tell me how lovely the restaurant was and how she enjoyed her meals there, and it's a place where she's had the best hummus ever.
Yeah.
And I then said to her, well, we make it from scratch.
Yeah.
It's like, we soak the chickpeas and we, come in the next morning, we cook the chickpeas, and then, we make it with like fresh lemon juice, the tahini, the olive oil, etc. And we do put garlic in it. So I proceeded to talk to her about that. And she said, I see that you have a cooking school. However, could you do a private cooking class for me?
Yeah.
And I said, well, I would have to think about that. But, we have a cooking school and we have a class coming up. And, can you go to that class? And she said, no, I really have to do a private class.
Right. Yeah.
And even by this stage, I still don't know who I'm talking to, right? And I said, well, I'll get back to you. Can you give me a phone number or something?
Yeah.
That I'll get back to you? And her chef came out and he gave me, on a piece of paper, gave me the number. And then she said, oh, by the way, I'm Scarlett Johansson, and she put her hand out.
Yeah.
And I am not one that shakes people's hands or give people hugs.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
So she put her hand out, and I didn't. And again, and when she said, I'm Scarlett Johansson, it immediately clicked because the staff had told me.
I told you.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, I'm Yashoda.
You've heard of me.
And I said, yeah, okay. And by then I was like in such a shock that I said, yeah, okay, I wanted to run away. I wanted to pay me, and I wanted to just go away.
Yeah.
I said, yes, I will get back with you about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I came home, and I live very close to that location. I came home and I told David what happened.
Yeah.
He got annoyed at me. He said, how could you do that?
Yeah.
Why didn't you just say yes? I said, excuse me?
Yeah.
You want me to do a private lesson in my house
Yeah.
after working 16 hours a day in a restaurant? I said, when am I going to do that?
Yeah.
So anyway, he convinced me and said, oh, he would help.
Yeah.
And so we did end up having her in my home. Not that night.
Okay.
No. Like I think a week later.
Wow.
Yeah. She was in town for a while because she was filming the
Avengers movie.
Avengers.
Wow.
Yeah. So then we did have her here,
Yeah.
Okay.
and she's like I was
Yeah.
describing her, she's like a little girl.
Yeah.
So she's a vegan then. She doesn't eat meat.
She was back then.
Okay. Okay.
I think she
Interesting.
probably
And she
still is,
wanted to
Yeah.
learn how to make that food that we cook at the restaurant.
That's
Yeah.
great. So I mean, I
That's
think
great.
that's just an amazing story, right? From
And she
Yeah.
wanted me to show it to her chef, her
Wow.
personal chef.
and that's just that's how far you've come, right? 23
Yeah.
years
I
from
don't-
selling it out of your
That's so
car
amazing.
to
What
have
a great
Scarlett
story.
Johansson coming to your
Yeah.
house.
But I don't think she's a vegan anymore. Well, I think she's since had 2 kids.
Yeah.
And she's not a vegan anymore.
Okay.
Or maybe, but a lot of time people go and become
and
vegans
forth.
and then
And
they
they
go
come
back
back.
and they start eating some eggs again just because they feel like they need more protein.
Yeah.
Or they might go back and then become pescatarians, have
Yeah.
some fish to their diet. So at this point, I don't know. And again, like I said, I'm not starstruck. I
Yeah.
didn't keep contact with her. She
Yeah.
has kept contact with us.
Yeah.
She, likes our page and
Wow,
we
that's
post
great.
stuff.
That's
and
huge.
She, but I'm not one to
Yeah.
actually
Yeah. You're focused. You gotta
latch
yeah.
onto that.
Yeah.
You're focused on making people feel good
Yes,
through
yeah.
food. Yes.
Yeah.
On
So
all the big new things that are coming
Yeah.
for Annapurna.
Well,
yeah. We've had a lot of people come through the restaurant. And another story that I want to say is that, and this one freaked me out.
Okay.
I'm not really freaked out by serendipity, coincidence, all of that kind of
Yeah.
stuff, right? But this one freaked me out. So we went on a Alaskan cruise for David's 60th birthday, which was in 2018.
mhm.
So we left out of Seattle and came back at Seattle and flew out of Seattle. So we came to the airport, and I am not a person that I have a Kindle on my phone, so I read all my books and everything through Kindle, right?
Yeah.
Nice.
I don't go to the Hudson. I don't go to the Hudson and
Newsstand.
buy magazines or
Yeah.
books or anything. I don't.
Yeah.
And I'm very organized because I travel so much. I don't have to go to the Hudson to buy like chapstick or anything like that,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
But this one day, I said to myself when I was there,
Mhm.
David said he was going to go get a beer.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, okay. And I said, well, I'm just going to go in here. And I walked into the Hudson, and right as I walked in, there was this big display of this book by Parker Posey.
Okay.
And it was the title was On a Plane with Parker Posey.
Mm.
So I know Parker Posey. She was in my restaurant.
Okay.
Okay.
And my interaction with her, I walked into my restaurant kitchen,
Mhm.
and she was in the kitchen
Oh, she was
at
in
the
kitchen.
grill flipping chapatis in her high heels.
Yeah.
And to me, I saw a person in the kitchen, in a restaurant
Yeah.
kitchen, high heels.
Shouldn't belong
I'm
there,
thinking
Yeah.
insurance. I'm thinking all kinds of stuff, liability. I walked in and I said, "What are you doing? Get out of here! Who are you?"
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that was my meeting with Parker Posey.
There you go.
So when I walked into this Hudson and I saw that book,
Yeah.
and then of course I got to know who she was, right?
Yeah.
So I had this background. Now we in 2018, right? I walk in, I see her, see
Yeah.
this book.
Yeah.
I pick it up
Yeah.
and I open the book. And I open the book to the chapter that says New Mexico.
Wow.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
And I still don't know anything, right?
Yeah.
I start reading, and in that chapter, she's talking about her visit to New Mexico and her time spent in New Mexico, filming in New Mexico, and how she went to Annapurna's and ate vegan
Yeah.
Ayurvedic food
Yeah.
and ate khichdi. And she talked about one of our cooks
Yeah.
and about how one of our cooks taught her how to make chapatis.
Wow.
Wow.
And all of that is written in this book.
Yeah.
I totally wow.
Yeah.
It's like I wouldn't, needless to say, I bought the book.
Yeah.
Now, I don't buy books at an airport because they're an inflated price. I buy them from Amazon on my Kindle, right?
Yeah, like everybody.
So, like everybody else. So I bought the book immediately, took it out, ran out to find David where he was at a bar with his beer.
Yeah.
And I was like, look at this.
Yeah.
Wow.
That was nice of her not to put in the part about you yelling at her.
Yeah.
Exactly. I was just blown away.
Yeah.
It's like, what?
Yeah.
I couldn't believe that. Like, Annapurna is, like, I opened this restaurant least thinking that it would ever get
Where it is now, yeah.
to where it is.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, I thought that was like, wow, that like it's like something was tapping on my shoulder telling me to go in the Hudson,
Go in the
right?
Hudson.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's, it's incredible what you've accomplished from such a humble beginnings, not knowing what you were doing, to yelling at Parker Posey and Scarlett Johansson. You've come a long way.
Again, that is my discipline with like follow the rules and regulations.
Yeah.
Don't, you can't be in the kitchen. I don't even let the front of the house staff walk down the line because if you, get like a knife thrown at you or you have some boiling water, or boiling chai coming off the stove,
Right, yeah.
It's like, and I walk in the kitchen and here's somebody in high heels in front flipping chapatis on the grill. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
But it's incredible what you've accomplished.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for talking to us today. You've given us a lot to go on. So.
But I didn't talk to you about your system. I didn't tell you,
don't have
how,
to. That's
how
fine.
I appreciate having Self-Lane. I came from
Aloha, is that right?
Yeah, I came from Aloha, and oh my God, I was so excited when I got Aloha back in the day. Again, inexperienced operator that opened a restaurant, somebody that didn't know how to cook. Needless to say, I didn't know how to take the orders. When we first opened, we had like a Casio kind of thing that we would wrote the orders down on paper and brought it back to the kitchen.
Yeah.
And all of those, and then the only thing I knew was how to calculate the GST.
Yeah.
The gross receipts tax. Right. I'm saying GST because I have the British and Meads General Sales Tax. So, coming from that and then going to Aloha, and it was actually, I got introduced to Aloha by the Flying Star people.
Okay.
And I'm eternally grateful to them for that at that time.
Yeah.
So, but Aloha was good and while it lasted. But then it got to that point where when I met you, Kevin, and I think I met you because we had done credit card processing through Heartland.
Through Aloha, yes.
Okay.
And then that's when I met you, and I was just so glad that we could have Self-Lane.
Thank you.
Because by the time we ended up with Aloha, I was just about ready to take those giant dinosaur kind of terminals and throw them out the door. But the iPads are great.
Yeah, and there was a lot of moving pieces, right? You had your loyalty through another company, the processing, the POS, the delivery.
Yes.
So we kind of just brought everything
and
into one
making
system.
that transition. Yeah. And one of these days when we have some time, I'd like to sit down with you and help you continue to refine and redo and remodel and add those extra things in there.
That's huge for us. All your feedback is
just like you said, customer feedback is really the number one ingredient to make you successful. So,
right. You have to listen to the customer.
Yeah.
So you're going to listen to me, right?
Yes, absolutely. This has been the best one so far, by far. And I 100%. You gave us so much information, so many stories. It's really good. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about before we wrap it up?
I think we covered...
we covered a lot.
A lot. But I would like to see that there's so much potential here in New Mexico. It's an interesting restaurant landscape.
Yeah.
You've got all these you've got some iconic restaurants that are closing. You've got just restaurants closing in general, but at the same time, you've got restaurants popping up everywhere.
Everywhere.
And I just think that if they could see, the benefit, the advantages of going with somebody that's local.
Oh yeah.
I think I still have that Aloha 1-800 numbers that's like etched in my memory. Like I don't think I can even take it out. But it's so much easier, like dealing with somebody that's local.
Yeah.
Like when a printer goes down or it's just broken,
Yep.
Right.
then I can call somebody and the printer will be there, right
Yeah.
there,
Right there.
In
Within
person.
hours.
Yeah, and you can then continue on. So people need to see that,
Yeah.
and it's also it helps this economy. It grows this local economy.
Yeah.
When you can do business with people that
Yeah. Well, and
are
that's
right there.
that's really why we started doing this, is because we wanted to bring more attention to the local
Right.
scene.
Yeah.
And because I think a lot of people like you and Sham and Haas and all of these people, like what we see with good owners of restaurants, they're there. They're on site all the time, helping out in the kitchen,
Mhm.
talking to customers. So giving people an
Right.
even more, in-depth look at who you are, how you got
Mhm.
started, telling your story. That's what
Right.
this is all about for us, is because that builds goodwill in the community and lets everyone see
Right.
how the
Yeah.
sausage is made, or in this case the dal and the chapati and the chai. So
Right.
it really
Yeah.
is about bringing all those things together and having people see, like you said, Albuquerque and New Mexico have a lot of potential. So
Yeah.
we want to lift you guys up as much as possible. And you've said some nice things about us, but it's really about you guys at the end of the day. We're here to serve you, and we want people, the food is what keeps
Right.
people coming back.
Yeah.
So
It was very nice when I went to you guys and I said, "Hey, my reports disappeared," and then the next minute they were there.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
There
I
it goes.
just think that Charlie does so
Okay.
much. Like with the system, so that the end user, that's us,
Yeah.
we're able to get our reports
Right.
in a certain way.
Yeah.
That's really important.
Yeah. Charlie's great. He's
Yeah.
always
Responsive.
Yeah.
responsive up for any good feedbacks and tweaks on the system to make
Mhm.
your life better. And that's
Right.
really what we strive to
Yeah.
do is.
But I do want to say one thing about the loyalty. So we got the loyalty, and we don't we don't say it to every customer. Some staff do, but sometimes when it gets really busy, we forget to say, "Hey, what's your phone number?" to get your phone
Okay.
number in. I have seen another system. You probably know Toast. Il Vicino is a place that I eat all the time.
Yeah.
It's one restaurant where I go eat all the time. Like
Yep.
probably the only restaurant where I go all the time
Yeah.
Okay.
when I don't want to eat in my restaurant. They have Toast,
Okay.
and so you it automatically
We have an
captures all your
we
information.
have an integration now with caller ID, so we could potentially set that up for you.
Right.
So especially for call-in orders, it's the easiest because the caller ID recognizes the phone number. It
Yeah.
puts the whole order history. It shows you their total balance of points. It automatically signs them up for the membership program. And since you're already using the membership program,
Mhm,
it would be
mhm.
really useful for you guys in terms of all that.
Yeah,
data
and
capture.
we run ours. We take phone numbers. We don't take emails or anything like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but all that information, if they put it in for the
Mm-hmm.
membership, it's all available to you, and then you can see those order histories.
Yeah, and Toast does it automatically, and Toast will send you they'll send you an email, and it will say, oh, you have points, or you have, or to rate them.
Right.
Okay. Or like a
Yeah.
text message, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those
No,
are
actually, I get mine on an,
email.
and I think because they are linked with the Rewards Network,
Okay.
and we have a Rewards Network in the restaurant as well.
Yeah.
But I think they link to Rewards Network with theirs, because I have my cards on Rewards Network just because I'm a restaurant that has Rewards Network. So they said you should put your own cards on here. And so basically, when you go to a restaurant that has it, you get points that goes on your United
Credit
Visa,
card?
United Airlines card, or your Southwest card, or whatever card you link to it, right? So
Yeah.
you get an email and it tells you you get 10 points if you rate them.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you get that automatically. So I think getting those reviews and rating, it kind of it helps a restaurant because
It's more feedback for you.
yeah, it's more feedback for us, and it's not that way they go to Google and write the nasty stuff.
Right.
yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
Positive
Yeah.
feedback.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're already invested, and you see,
Yeah.
you know,
Right.
because that's what it is too. It gives you their lifetime orders, so you can see just how much support they give.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it will all be positive.
Yeah. No.
But I think now we see people's lifetime points and we see what their balance
Yeah,
is.
it just
you
comes
do.
up when you
We
when
updated
they
that.
call the phone.
Yeah, so what you're saying is we can kind of learn from Toast and make sure we could do something similar to that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. Well, we'll get that done.
Awesome.
Again, we want to thank you today for your time.
Yeah.
It's so refreshing to hear your story.
Yeah.
I mean, we hear a lot of restaurant stories, and a lot of them have a similar beginning where you have this idea, this passion to put your food out there, to treat people with your food. So it's very refreshing. Thank you so much for
Thank
your
you.
time today.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you for asking me
Yeah.
so I can talk.
Oh
And I hope that you're going to be in every restaurant
yeah.
Thank
we're-
really soon.
Yes.